The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools. If it's the sport you care about, we're talking about it. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Happy Monday. Happy 2021.
We made it.
Oh, I'm so happy to say
we
2021.
That was a brutal year. Hey, do you ever look back on events last year and be like, man, that feels like 2 years ago, and this one feels like 3 months ago? Like the Mountain West Conference tournament, honestly, and I'm being dead honest, feels like 2 years ago.
Yes.
I was there in
like
Vegas
forever.
for that tournament. I was joining you on the show from remote, That feels like 2 years ago. But, Eric, the Jordan Love season, his final one at Utah State, feels like last year. Gary Anderson being let go feels like 3 years ago now. It's just weird how that kind of works, what 2020 did to our brains.
Yeah, it's all scrambled. It's all weird. And you know what? I know there's a lot of people saying, 2020 was a rough year. It was terrible, man. It can't get much worse than that. Please don't say that. Please don't curse us.
Yeah, don't jinx it.
Because it could. It actually could get worse. We don't need to see that. We don't need 2021, or we don't need 2020 just to be the ramp up.
Oh, it wasn't Dinwiddie. It was Kevin Durant.
What's that?
Tomorrow.
What about?
Dinwiddie's out for the year, but Kevin Durant's out tomorrow too.
Oh, yeah. So Dinwiddie tore his ACL or something.
Yeah,
right?
he's done for the year. Durant is NBA's coronavirus health and safety protocol.
Ooh, interesting.
You know what sucks though is no. It doesn't suck because we get to air local high school basketball, which I'm excited about. I love my man, Mr. Newbold, and what he does. But dude, the two games that Skyview has a game on, we don't get to air the Jazz game. And guess who they play? Kyrie Irving in the Nets for the first game, and then Sam Merrill and the Milwaukee Bucks. And we don't get to hear that game on this station. I'm bummed out. And again, I love high school basketball, and I support our Skyview Bobcats. But I would have loved to hear, man. Turn on to 106 on the Fan and hearing David Locke call the Bucks Jazz game and hearing Sam Merrill's name would have been really cool.
That would be cool.
But as it is what it is. Hey, how was the New Year? Treat you well?
Yeah, it was good.
Do well?
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Extra time with the fam, which was great. Last night, sitting around dinner. Hey guys, school starts again tomorrow.
Oh, you did that to
Did
them?
everybody get all their homework and stuff done, or all their projects done before? All of a sudden, eyes get as wide as saucers. What?
Yeah, Dad. You're supposed to help us out. We're playing NBA Jam. Come on, man. Be a pal. Yeah. That's always fun.
How about for you? Did you do the whole fireworks and party? And
no.
The little noisemakers.
I think there's a little bit of Grandpa's cough medicine. No.
Little bubbly.
Yeah. Actually, I had 4 bottles of sparkling cider or sparkling whatever that is, like the white grape cider.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh
yeah.
man, I gulped all 4 bottles. Just bam, bam, bam. It was so good.
Whole bottle?
Oh yeah. 4 bottles in 2 days.
Were you belching for days?
Oh,
That stuff is so carbonated.
let's
so
just
bubbly.
say I deflated myself very quickly throughout the next 24 hours. But yeah, it was
Interesting
good
way to
though.
put that.
It was good. It was great though. It was great. And you know what was the best part about it? Is seeing the Aggies, both ladies and men's, sweep Air Force. Now, we're going to talk about men's basketball, but the Lady Aggies and what Kayla Art's got going on over there, I know we've had her on the show a couple times, legit. Absolute legit. There's so much swag on this team, and don't expect them to win the Mountain West Conference Championship. But they're going to be more competitive than they have been in the last few years. It's the first time they swept Air Force since 2018. It's a big, big sweep for the Lady Aggies. Really, really happy for them.
That is good. And, gosh, when's the last time that both teams swept like that?
Yeah. No, that's a...
4 straight.
Yep. Absolutely.
We get it. It's a different year and a different schedule, and you wouldn't normally see the same team back-to-back like that. You might see them in January and then again, late February or something like that. But still, good performances by both teams, dominating performances by the men.
Goodness gracious. Hey,
flat out domination.
Let's have this conversation. And to our listeners, by the way, A, Happy New Year. B, I'd love to hear their opinion on this. 435-339-0321 to text in. Again, 435-339-03 to text in, or 0321 to text in. Would love to hear your opinion on this, because I want to know where Aggie Nation sits in this thought process or thought realm. Utah State has beaten every single team in the Mountain West Conference play thus far, and that's only 2 teams, but they've beat them by double digits. They beat, what was it? They beat San Jose State by like 35, 37, or 52 or whatever, and then 37, and then turned around and then beat Air Force by 30-something and then 19 points. Eric, is it and to our listeners, I asked this as well.
Is it concerning that the margin of victory is getting slimmer and slimmer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're starting to take a little bit of edge off.
I mean, it's still like 20 points or more.
But Eric, here's the question, and again, it's to our listeners. Are you thrilled that we're beating teams this badly, or do you say, well, look at the opponent and who it is? Now, on one hand, and you brought this up last week, it is Air Force, but Air Force went and split with Nevada at Lawler Arena in Reno, Nevada. And then someone else is going to say, well, you beat San Jose State. Well, San Jose State took Boise State to the buzzard and probably should have beat them. They took a bad shot at the end and they couldn't get a defensive board. So the question again,
well, that's what's so odd.
So I don't know, is it the Utah State men's basketball team this good, or is it the first 2 opponents we played are that bad?
Well, and San Jose did that without Seneca Knight because he already checked himself out.
Yeah, he's already quit.
I'm done. I'm not going to do this.
So, and then the other question I have with it, part 2, is New Mexico. They got swept by Nevada. They had started off 3-0 and now have lost the last 4 games. Granted, the first 2 are to Boise State, the next 2 are to Nevada. But the sweeping New Mexico, which would get us off to our second best start in school history in regards of conference play at 6-0, would that do anything to prove that this team is really, 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 really good? I don't know, Eric. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Because New Mexico, I mean, just looking at the standings and the overall record right now, New Mexico's 3-4. They're 0-4 in conference play. So San Jose is 0-4, 1-6 overall. Air Force is 1-3 in conference play, 3-5 overall. Those are not great teams.
No.
But and I'll say this with a big but, that Utah State. It's good for these games to happen for Utah State for 2 big reasons in my mind. One, to continue to work through your rotations and improve your depth, because you never know when coronavirus, contact tracing, or injuries may occur. And 2, this helps build momentum and confidence, and you come into the San Diego State matchup with a head full of steam. And now that is assuming they can get past New Mexico. I don't want to overlook them too much. We have that luxury. We can do that. Coaches don't. Players don't. But if they can get past New Mexico, they'll be 6-0 in conference play with some good, strong momentum, the wind behind their back, going up against a good San Diego State team.
Okay, so here's the final scores for the first 3 conference games. Again, 107-62, 85-52, 83-48, 72-53. That's in the realm of 34.5 point winning margin in the first 4 conference games. And then, by the way, San Diego State went over there and blew a huge lead to, they were up by, 27 or something? And in the span of 20 minutes of basketball, blew a lead to Colorado State and lost to Colorado State by giving up a 4-point play That's incredible. So I think we look at it, and maybe, again, I'm trying to be careful how I am my optimism, but have we beaten two not so great teams? Yes. But we've also blown away those two not so great conference teams, something that Boise State and San Diego State, who are picked above us in the Mountain West Conference in regard to the preseason pull to finish, that they couldn't do.
Right, and I think that is the good point. And I think that's the important differentiation here. Yes, they beat some bad teams. Yes, they blew them out. But they were supposed to. They should have.
Exactly.
That's the expectations that they should have.
Yes. Bingo.
And they did it at home and on the road. So it's not like you just benefited from a lot of home cooking. They had to do it at home and they had to do it on the road. And yes, they're not great teams that they went up against, but they took care of business and in a really strong fashion. Whereas some of the other teams might have gotten past them, but man, it was down to the wire on some of those games.
Yeah. But again, I'm impressed with this Aggie team. I'm impressed with their focus. I'm impressed with that it doesn't have to be the same guy every single night. We asked the question before the season, who's going to step up when they need the bucket because Sam Merrill's not there? Everybody had that question, you and I included. Brock Miller has been really good so far.
It's been a great 4-game stretch for him.
Started hot, cooled down pretty quickly. He went from going 3 of 4 to 3 of 9 pretty quickly. Worcester's been doing it differently. He's been an effect of the game in a different way. Keta was incredible. Bean was really, really good. Stephen Ashworth has been just a jump start off the bench.
Very solid minutes off the bench.
And he's
great
so reliable.
Yes.
Do you have the lines there by chance?
For the Saturday game?
Yeah.
Yes.
Give me Keta and Bean, will ya?
Keta, in 34 minutes, had 15 points, 4 blocks, 2 steals, 6 assists, and 11 rebounds.
Oh.
Justin Bean, in 33 minutes, 15 points, 2 steals, an assist, and 7 rebounds.
Do you remember, and I think we tried to answer these questions, but do you remember when people were bagging on Neemias Queta at the start of the year?
Right, yeah. People are like,
send
I
him
wish
the year
we had
up
a
after
better
the year.
Queta. He's
play overseas.
Underperforming. Like, everybody expected 20 and 12 out of him every night. 20, 12, and 4 blocks. Look, that's great, but that's rarefied air to do that. But look, this is a guy who is impacting the game in ways that don't always show up in box scores. I am pleased, definitely pleased, more than pleased, with how Neemias Queta is approaching the game this year. He seems to have he's a renewed focus and attention on his defense. Do I wish that he went a little bit stronger to the hole? Sure, yes. Could he do a little bit more by getting to the free throw line? Absolutely. But he's still a very impactful player for Utah State. Does he have room to grow? Yes. But has he regressed? No, I'm not going to say that.
I also have been impressed with our bench. I think Trevin Dorius has been really good off the bench. I think he's improved in so many ways, including being physical. He, last year, was the Tony Bradley of the basketball team. Wet his pants when he's on the floor, looked completely lost, deer in the headlights, and was soft as the Pillsbury Doughboy's stomach. And he has turned around and toughened up a lot, mentally, emotionally, and physically. I love what Trevin Dorius is bringing off in the backup minutes for Neemias Queta.
Right. A year ago, there was a real, clench your teeth and just kind of hold on.
Close your eyes.
Yeah, like I don't know what's going to happen in the minutes that Queta's off the court. But yeah, I think that has definitely been addressed this year. Dorius is a really good backup to fill those minutes. But I want to ask you, I was a little surprised just how much run the starters got on Saturday, that we didn't see more guys see the court. And for extended minutes, it was a little bit shorter bench on Saturday than it was the previous game. And the starters played more minutes. I mean, it was still a healthy game, and Aggies took care of business. But were you a little surprised by that, or is it just me?
Of what again?
Just that the starters played so many minutes in another blowout.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, they didn't play as many minutes in the first game against Air Force, right? Like they were pretty small minutes in that first game, and so I think you just look, and now you don't play for a few days until you go to Lubbock, Texas, to play New Mexico on a Wednesday and Friday, and then you're off until Thursday after that. But you got to get ready for San Diego State.
Just on in the first game against Air Force. Nobody played more than 25 minutes. No starter played more than 25. But on Saturday's game, they all played like 33, 34 minutes. And not nearly as many guys saw action off the bench.
Yeah.
So I'm just a little surprised at that. Yeah. I don't, maybe it was just a coaching decision. Look, we're going to run this a little bit differently.
Yeah. And 2197. 2197 just texted in a good point, and I actually have an example to this. The bench played street ball on Thursday. They didn't earn the right to play more on Saturday. Coach Smith was visibly not pleased with them. Do you remember when...
that's a fair point.
Was Sahijev, whatever that guy's name is, who comes in and likes to chuck up threes as soon as he touches the ball?
The one
where he took it just below the half-court line, which is in Steph Curry, I'm in a crazed zone range. And I think he barely grazed rim and it went out of bounds. Smith lost his mind. And then they gave up a couple of offensive rebounds because they didn't box out. One guy didn't toughen up. They give up too many drives to the hoop. That is a very, very great point by 2197. That bench played like hot garbage during their minutes. And here's the thing, is that when you're out on that court, you're playing for more minutes.
You're auditioning.
Exactly. Because come Mountain West Conference tournament time, you never know when your number is going to be called. Alfonso Anderson was as quiet as could be during the last portion of Mountain West Conference regular season last year. And then conference tournament came up, and guess what? They needed Alfonso big time. And he came through in the New Mexico game late. He came through in the Wyoming game, and definitely came through in the San Diego State game. So you just never know when it's going to be you being called upon. And so you going in there and throwing up a 40-footer to graze off the rim and go out of bounds, or you getting boxed out by guys smaller than you, doesn't do you any good. And in fact, makes coach wonder, well, what am I going to do when I have to play my guys heavy minutes in a tournament game?
No,
or when in a blowout. Like, I got to play my guys in a blowout game because my starter or my bench is going to come in and screw it all up.
That's a great point. That's a great way to send a message to your bench. Look, it's a blowout game, but if you're not going to come out here and play like, what we ask you to do, you're just going to keep spending time on the bench. That's too bad.
Yeah, it is.
It's really too bad.
It is. I would
we haven't
agree with
always
that.
seen that. We've seen games where the bench gets a lot of run and get a lot of play. Against San Jose, they got to play a lot of minutes, and I thought those were good quality minutes. But that's a great point. In the garbage time against Air Force, in that first game, it wasn't pretty. So it's coaching staff sending him a message. Look, we're going to run the same stuff. You need to know what we're running and why it works and how the role that you play within the system. We're not just turning it over and let y'all go out there and do whatever you want.
Yeah, you've got to go out there and play quality basketball for however many minutes you're given. And I would be surprised if a couple of guys see a lot of minutes, if they see any minutes, here coming up against New Mexico, especially against San Diego State, because I can guarantee you this. If you're up by 20 and if you're not playing well in your bench minutes against San Diego State, San Diego State's going to reel off a 18-0 run, and they are very capable of doing so, and B, you're going to find yourself not just on the bench, but at the end of the bench for a very long time in Coach Smith's doghouse. He'll find ways. The thing is, are you winning by 34.5 points average margin in the first 4 conference games? Yes. But I guarantee you, Coach Smith doesn't go in there and says, all right, guys, let's look at all the rosy plays that we had in the game. He's going to find stuff that he's going to nitpick at and say, what are you taking a 40-footer for when we're up by 38?
Right. How do we get better?
How are you getting boxed up by a guy 1 foot and 2 inches smaller than you? he's just going to find ways to get better by finding the weaknesses in this team.
Look, New Mexico, these games coming up this week, they're on national television, both of them. CBS Sports Network on Wednesday, Fox Sports 1, FS1 on Saturday. These are big games. Friday. It's Friday, right?
Yeah.
So CBS Sports Network and FS1. I mean, these are big prime time, not necessarily prime time, but 8 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's not prime time.
But still, it's a national broadcast for a national audience. And New Mexico's been struggling a little bit. They're trying to find themselves.
Exactly.
This is technically a home game for them. This is you can't overlook anybody.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And the other thing to that is, when's the last time we swept New Mexico?
Ooh.
I need to look that up. I'll look that up during the break. But I'd be kind of interested to see when the last time we swept New Mexico basketball is. Did we do it 2 years ago? We beat them at our place, or we beat them at their place on Abel Porter's 3. Did we beat them at our place too?
I'd have to
see, now I have to go back.
That's
and
a really
look.
good question.
Doggone it.
While you look that up,
Yes.
we'll take a timeout here on the Full Court Press. We'd love to get your thoughts about Utah State basketball as they've taken care of business so far in the Mountain West Conference. By the way, 2197 gives you an assist saying, yep, 2 years ago.
It is 2 years ago. Yep, they won both home.
But we'll continue to look at Utah State and the rest of the Mountain West after the weekend that was, as conference play is in full swing. And the net rankings for the first time released for the NCAA men's basketball. Where does Utah State stand on the list? Other Mountain West Conference schools? I'll be honest, I was shocked to see one of the schools where they were ranked.
I think I know who you're talking about, too.
Kind of surprised by a few teams, actually. So we'll update you on that coming up on the Full Court Press.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Eric Frandsen, Ajay, Salvesen, thanks for joining us here on a Monday.
Have you seen this Tanya Roberts story?
She was declared dead, and then they said she's not dead.
So, yeah, okay. Dude, crazy deal here. Like, yeah, she died at the age of 65. And now, like, the publicist guy called TMZ and said, no, she's still alive. But the husband said he had, quote unquote, Eric, truly believed that Roberts had died. That he was holding her in his arms as she was passing away.
What?
Dude, something's not right here, man.
No, that is so bizarre.
That's nuts. She was really good in that 70s show, by the way. I was a huge fan of her. Anyways, yeah.
I don't know much about her. I just saw the headline.
2021,
went
baby.
Back and forth, and then I guess she was a Bond girl.
Takes your breath away and gives it right back.
What? Weird.
Yeah, no kidding.
Interesting weekend in the Mountain West Conference. Utah State obviously got their big win, nearly 20 points over Air Force, a 19-point win. Nimi was a big part of that, 15 points, 11 boards, 4 blocks. But there were some surprises along the way as well. Boise State needing kind of a last-second shot to beat San Jose, 87-86. They gave up 52 points in the second half. Boise State
so
did.
bad.
Wyoming gets past Fresno 78-74, so close game there. Nevada beats New Mexico 84-74. And then the shocker, Colorado State beating San Diego State 70-67. They were down 26 points.
Do you know what's great is when the Aggies beat up on a Mountain West Conference team. Do you know what's better? Is when the Aggies beat up on a Mountain West Conference team and then San Diego State loses on the other side. That's so hilarious. And by the way, congrats to Colorado State. New coach, getting the feel for things. And you're down by 27 to a team that is very well coached, a very good team. on the road at Viejas Arena, and then you find a way to claw back into that game and beat them on a 4-point play. Why are you guarding the three like, dude, have you not played like AAU ball or rec ball or just basic basketball? You don't foul on a three. Contest, but don't foul.
A 4-point play with 12.3 seconds to go. The Aztecs opened the game leading 36-10. I mean, it looked like they were just going to run away with this one. But Colorado State had a couple of different runs. They went on a 14-0 run in the second half. They went on a 19-0 run in the first half. So that comeback is the largest in school and conference history. San Diego State missed 16 free throws. So, because of that, largely, I think because of that, and just generally speaking, the type of resume they've put together, Colorado State comes in ahead of San Diego State in the first edition of the net rankings that were released today. And Colorado State comes in at number 40. San Diego State 41. But Ajay, that's not the most surprising thing to me. That was surprising to see Colorado State ranked as high as they were.
Yeah.
But what was most surprising, Boise State coming in at 13.
Oh, boy.
But Colorado State lost St. Mary's by 20 points. They don't really have too many other signature wins other than that one against San Diego State. They do play again tonight in San Diego.
Oh, they play tonight?
Yes. But Colorado State, they have wins over NAU, Santa Clara, Fresno, Colorado State, Pueblo. So I'm a little surprised that their net ranking is as high as it is. Now, Boise State, they've only lost one game, and that was the opener against Houston. They have won every other game that they've played, which includes a victory in Provo over BYU. They beat Weber State in the replacement game that Utah State couldn't participate in. They've beat New Mexico. They've beat San Jose. So, Boise State coming in at number 13 in the net rankings. That surprised me that they were ranked as high as they were.
Do you think it's based off of schedule?
Well, that they played number 17 Houston, that means a lot. And I think that's the same thing with Colorado State, why they were ranked as high as they were, because of their game against San Diego State. Utah State is 85 in the net rankings. Those are the only teams in the top 100 in the Mountain West. Nevada's 145, Wyoming 153, and then you've got everybody else they're in the 200s, and it's a whole lot of garbage. Not a lot of good basketball in the bottom part of the Mountain West right now. So we'll see how. I mean, this week Utah State's not really going to help their case.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is that there's not a lot of good basketball at the bottom part of the Mountain West Conference. But guess what? One of those teams nearly beat San Diego State, Boise State. Sorry.
True.
So, if they're not that good, but they're competing with Boise State, what does that tell you about our conference as a whole?
Now, San Diego State was in the top 25 in the coaches poll. Obviously, they're not there anymore after losing to Colorado State. They are still receiving some votes, not very many. Boise State's also receiving a few votes. Colorado State's receiving votes in the coaches poll.
Wow, that's incredible. Hey, speaking of college basketball, the tournament is being moved to Indianapolis. And you were telling me it's all it's the entire tournament 68 teams, one city of madness in Indianapolis. I don't know, man. What do you think?
Mostly one city. I mean, it's in and around Indianapolis. I like it.
I've never been in Indianapolis before, so if the Aggies go, maybe I'll go check it out. See what the city, all the hop and buzz is about.
But it'll be entirely in Indiana, all in one state.
Dude, so there'll be no fans there then,
venues,
right?
They will allow some fans. So the venues will be in Indianapolis, Bloomington, and West Lafayette. Teams will stay in hotels connected to the Indiana Convention Center, which will be used as a practice facility. Final Four site will be at the Lucas Oil Stadium, there where the Colts play. But there in Indianapolis, multiple venues will be used, like Bankers Life Fieldhouse. That's where the Pacers play. Hinkle Fieldhouse and Indiana Farmers Coliseum. Those will be used for tournament games. Mackey Arena in West Lafayette, Assembly Hall in Bloomington also will be used. So it's a way to put a lot of people in a kind of a closer geographic area to make it more confined, to kind of a pseudo bubble for the tournament.
How many fans did it say? How many fans are going to allow?
I think it's just family members.
Okay, you can't allow a ton of people into those arenas, especially with 68 teams being there.
Teams will stay on dedicated hotel floors, abide by social distancing throughout their time in the tournament. A limited number of family members will be permitted to watch games, while other details about fans remain undetermined.
Okay. All right. Huh. Well, that should be fun.
They'll test the players, the coaches, staff. They'll do regular testing. They're calling it a controlled environment.
Hey, if it worked for the NBA, it can work for college basketball. Students just gotta, student athletes and the players, the staff, the coaches.
It's the NBA bubble on steroids.
Yeah.
How many teams went to the NBA bubble? 20?
Yes.
So you're going to go to 68?
This is going to be a tough one. But hey, look, if you got the facilities, the hotels and such, and the other part to it's going to be kind of interesting is that they're having them stay on like separate hotel floors.
Yeah, this floor 12, that all belongs to Utah State. Floor 11, that's going to belong to Kentucky.
That's nuts. Cool.
The other thing they're looking at is the possibility of replacement teams. There's a chance you could be, quote unquote, on the bubble and just out, but somebody gets an outbreak on their team and they don't allow them to participate in this bubble-controlled environment in the tournament. And they say, okay, guess what? Looks like you're in.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Could you imagine, like, you lose the conference championship game, you're getting ready for the NIT, and all of a sudden you get a phone call and it says, hey, so-and-so team has been tested positive for COVID. They're out. Since you're the runner-up, would you like to go play for them in the tournament? Well, do you call the NIT and say, hey, sorry, got a bit better offer?
What if it's a higher-seeded team?
See,
do you move everybody else up? Does a team that, like, if you were a 6 seed or 5 seed,
and you lost
and you have to go out, how do they replace you with another 5 seed?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. It's like, if the team you beat in the conference championship game would not have been a 5 seed, they would have been a 12 seed, and they get in, do they get the luxury of a 5 seed? and by the way, that is a real possibility. This thing is, it's taken over teams at times. You've seen a bunch of games canceled over the weekend. There's a couple more canceled tonight. You don't know. You don't know if it's going to be you. Luckily for the Aggies, I think most of them have been hit with it already. Yeah, that could get really interesting. But I like it. I like it. Putting them all just into one and saying, hey, you got your own floor in the hotel room. Don't go anywhere else.
Indiana, the state of Indiana, will be basketball heaven for March. The Division II men's tournament is going to be held in Evansville, Indiana.
Oh, wow.
Division III men's tournament will be held in Fort Wayne, Indiana.
So what you're saying is that if I go get a hotel in January,
you have a lot of basketball to watch. But look, if you were scheduled to host games this upcoming year, was Boise on the calendar for this upcoming year? Now you just lost that opportunity. I guess you get kicked into the next year, or what happens? I don't know. So looking at a comment from Mitch Barnhart, he's the chair of the Division I men's basketball committee. He's also the AD at Kentucky. He says, with the University of Kentucky slated to host first and second round games in March, it's something that directly impacts our school and community. The committee and staff deeply appreciate the efforts of all host institutions and conferences. Look forward to bringing the tournament back to the impacted sites in future years. So, nothing specific.
Fun. Absolute chaos. It's going to be chaos there, by the way.
Hey, you know what? The fact that they were able to try to figure something out to still preserve some form of a tournament is a win.
Point. Yep, absolutely. And I don't think you'll see a cancellation of the tournament this year.
I agree.
I think it will go forth.
I think from what we've learned on how to handle contact tracing, regular testing, yes, I think outbreaks will still occur. But by March, other people are starting to get vaccinated. You may see coaches. Some head coaches will be in those categories where they would qualify to get vaccinated. I don't know that it's to the general public or college athletes are probably one of the last to be qualified to get those vaccines. But hopefully, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that we'd see a lot more headway there and bringing numbers down and case counts down. And I think just learning more about how to contain it and test for it and get out ahead of any virus spread. I'm with you. I think that we're very likely to see the tournament play out. If they can figure out how to logistically get everybody there and do practices and do games and all those different courts and venues and communities in a somewhat isolated situation and still play the games, that's a win.
Yeah, it is. Again, just having the tournament will be great for us. How they're going to pull that off, though, is see if it works.
All right, calling a timeout here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, let's talk about the NFL playoffs. They are now set. Some controversy with the last week of the NFL, but now we know all the playoff.
I want to send my condolences to the Patriots and all of Patriots Nation. We deserved better, and Cam Newton didn't give us that. It's his fault.
It's only Cam's fault.
Oh, he sucked. Eric, you and I could have played better than that.
Didn't you know? Didn't the Patriots know what they were going to get from Cam Newton?
No, they thought they were going to get MVP Cam Newton. Not, I'm worried more about my fashion style for post-game press conference, Cam Newton. I feel bad, don't you?
That was a few years ago. Why did they think it was all of a sudden magically going to happen?
Because Bill Belichick turned Randy Moss into prime Moss, Corey Dillon into prime Corey Dillon, Ronnie Harrison. Want me to keep going? You're welcome.
That's a fair point.
Absolutely.
That's
Go Pats.
They'll have a January unlike they've had in 20 years.
January off. That's crazy. That's so weird. You just said it like that. Oh, man.
There are college kids who have never not seen the Patriots in the playoffs.
Oh, my gosh. Well, yeah. Oh, wait. We didn't make it. because Brady injured his knee in Game 1 against Kansas City. We went 11-5, but because we split with the Dolphins, we got bounced out of the playoffs. 11-5 football team in the AFC. That's horrible. Meanwhile, the Washington Redskins or Washington football team gets in because the Eagles decide they want to tank for a 5th pick in the draft. I'm bitter if you can't tell.
Yeah. All right, we'll update you on the standings and what the playoff pairings are now going to be in the NFL. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Talking the sports you care about. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
That's right. If you want to weigh in, we'd love to hear from you as well. 435-339-0321. Or you can message us directly through the 106.9 The Fan mobile app, free to download wherever you get your apps, depending on the device that you use. But the NFL weekend, we knew that it was some teams had a lot to fight for, others didn't matter. So consequently, there were actually some interesting games and some that made you want to pull your hair out. So the one that was kind of interesting, the Dolphins kind of fighting for a chance and to figure out what their playoff positioning could be, but the Bills didn't matter. They knew that they were going to make it. They still came and brought the heat, 56-26 over the Dolphins. The Ravens taking care of business, securing their position over the Bengals, 38-3. One of the bigger surprises were the Browns beating the Steelers, 24-22 in their game on Sunday. I know a lot of controversy over what happened with the Eagles and Washington and their program wanting to go out there and competing to win. Eagles had opportunities, and then they pulled their guy into it. Just Jalen Hurts has been playing pretty well. But no, let's pull him out, throw in Nate Sudfeld, third string guy, just to give him reps, just to give him a trophy for participation. It's talked about a lot already today on this station with their other national guys, but really bizarre. Good to see Alex Smith come back out there. He did throw a couple of picks. He didn't make it easy for Washington to get the win, but still good to see him come out after being injured and get back in there and lead his team to another victory. So, in essence, without going through all the games, this is what we're going to see now in the playoffs. Wild card weekend, this weekend, the Green Bay Packers and the Kansas City Chiefs, they get byes for this week in round one. But in the NFC, New Orleans Saints finished number 2, and they will host the Chicago Bears, who finished number 7. That'll be Sunday at 2:20 our time. The Seattle Seahawks are number 3, and they'll host the Rams. Same time, 2:20. Except that'll be on Saturday. Excuse me. And then on the other team from the NFC, you've got the Washington football team. They secure their spot. They host, even though they're 7-9, the number 5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's the later game on Saturday, 6:15 our time. In the AFC, Buffalo will host Indianapolis Saturday at 11 a.m. Pittsburgh, they've kind of limped into the postseason, but they still get the number 3 spot in the AFC. They will host the Cleveland Browns. It'll be a repeat of what we just saw this past weekend. That'll be 6:15 on Sunday. And then Tennessee, they will host Baltimore. Great matchup there. And that'll be on Sunday at 11 a.m. our time. So, and then the division rounds are the following week. Conference championships January 24th, and the Super Bowl in Tampa on February 7th. I got to tell you, I got to find this. This was from the game this weekend, and this is from the Cleveland Browns radio broadcast. this epitomizes how fun the local broadcasts can be for these games, for these teams, especially for those that have struggled for a long time, and then things start to go their way, and exciting things happen for them. This is Jim Donovan calling the play-by-play as the game comes to a conclusion for the Cleveland Browns after they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers this past weekend.
The Aggies are number one here. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
Eric Frandsen with you here on the Full Court Press. Ajay did have to sneak out, but speaking of the Aggies, we'll talk about them next hour as well. Blake Anderson filling out his coaching staff with some very familiar names. Some former Aggies will be on the sidelines again. We already know about one of them. His position is a little bit more defined. Other familiar names filling out the rest of the staff. The staff isn't totally announced just yet, but some big announcements today by Blake Anderson and his coaching staff. Another standout Arkansas State player is leaving the Red Wolves and coming to Logan. We'll update you on who that is. And more wins here by this coaching staff. But there is controversy with USU football. It still exists. There is an update on the investigation going into the comments allegedly made by USU President Noel Cockett. John Hartwell was on the call along with 59 other football players, apparently. Football players have spoken out about it. Noel Cockett has issued a statement. USU Board of Trustees and the Board of Higher Education has also issued statements calling for independent investigations. We do have an update on the progress of those investigations. We'll update you on that coming up next hour as well. You can read about it in the meantime on CashValleyDaily.com. We'll also update you on what's going on with the Utah Jazz. They play tomorrow. Who's going to be on the sidelines? Who's going to be on the other side of the court? There's some updates there. We'll update you next hour. Stick around.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools. If it's the sport you care about, we're talking about it. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 1069 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Yeah, what's going on, everybody? Eric Frandsen here with you on a Monday. Well, very busy weekend. You had the bowl games. You had the NFL final week. Utah Jazz were in action on the road, dropping three-pointers like crazy, like they did in the opener at Portland. Utah is undefeated on the road, by the way. You've got a matchup tomorrow at Brooklyn. Because the Skyview Bobcats are also playing tomorrow, we will not have the Utah Jazz game. So just be aware of that. But speaking of Skyview, the high school basketball RPR rankings released today. We'll update you on those as well. And a lot of different things to go through today. But I want to touch on a few more things here with this Philadelphia Eagles debacle. Over the weekend, created a lot of controversy. Jalen Hurts gets benched, bring in the third-string quarterback just to, quote-unquote, give him some reps because he's earned it. Clearly, they're not trying to win the game. They're purposely not trying to make the playoffs, even though they had a chance to do it, still with a very bad record. 9474 texts in, Carson Wentz is already asking for a trade, and after that bogus coaching decision on Sunday, I'd say that the front office of the Eagles should take a hard look to see if Doug Peterson is cut out to continue as head coach. I think both he and Wentz could be gone this offseason. What do you guys think? Well, I think you're right. I think it's definitely moving in that direction. It's upsetting a lot of people, some of those decisions that were made late. Some are saying, we can't put this on Carson Wentz. Doug Peterson's trying to say, it's not his fault where we're at. We're not where we want to be. But there's several coaches speaking out about purposely losing, doing things to purposely lose. We heard that the Giants, with some of the comments that they made. But Ron Rivera also came out and said, he's not going to apologize for winning. Some people saying, look, strategically, for draft purposes, maybe it's better to lose. But Ron Rivera came out pretty clear today. He's not going to apologize for winning.
Honestly, truthfully, it honestly doesn't matter. You play who's out there. I'm not going to apologize for winning. And apparently, that's what everybody wants me to do, is apologize for winning. I'm not going to, because you play the game as it's set up. Okay? Nobody complained when Pittsburgh did what they did last night against Cleveland. I mean, come on. This is just the way it is. Okay? We got in the playoffs. We're 7-9. Okay? I've been 7-8-1 in the playoffs. I was on an 8-8 team that was in the playoffs. And you don't apologize for getting into the playoffs, okay? You apologize for losing in the playoffs, at least I believe you do, but you don't apologize for getting in, because it's been a hard roll for us, and nobody seems to care about that. Nobody cared 2 weeks ago when we didn't have some of our best players. Nobody cared last week when we didn't have them. So why should we be concerned if a coach decides to do something he thinks is best for his team? Okay, that's the thing I think people need to understand. This is just the way the game's played. This is just the way things happen. A lot of people are happy about it. A lot of people aren't happy about it. And that's just tough. That's just the way it is, okay? I mean, so many things have happened in this world that are tough, that are hard, okay? This is just the game that we're playing, and we're going to play the game as it comes to us. And I'm not going to apologize. I'm not. That's just the way it is.
I love it. It's great. Yes, there's gamesmanship that happens at the end of the year. Pittsburgh kind of called off the dogs a little bit, but still they were trying to go for 2, and they were still trying to win the game against Cleveland, not to the degree what we saw out of Philadelphia. But you can sense that it's caused quite a stir among coaches throughout the NFL, what Philadelphia did at the end of the game in the fourth quarter there in their game against Washington. Nonetheless, the playoffs are now set. We've got games coming up on Saturday. We've got games coming up on Sunday as well. So coming up this week, this weekend starts on Saturday at 11 a.m. on on CBS. The Colts are at the Bills at 11. At 2:40, it's the Rams at the Seahawks. And then in the evening at 6:15, it's the Buccaneers at Washington. Even though Tampa's clearly had the better season, just the way that the NFL still runs their archaic way of doing playoffs, Washington is hosting the Buccaneers. On Sunday, the Titans host the Ravens at 11 on ABC. By the way, the Buccaneers and Washington game, that's going to be on NBC. On Sunday on ABC and ESPN, you got the Ravens at the Titans. At 2:40, it's the Bears at the Saints on CBS. And then on Sunday night at 6:15, it's the Browns at the Steelers, a rematch of the game that just played this weekend, although it will be in Pittsburgh instead of in Cleveland. Pittsburgh has kind of limped into the postseason, but they are still favored by 4.5 going to this game this weekend. So most of the games look like they're kind of close in the Vegas lines, except for the Bears at the Saints. Saints favored by 10 in this one. Tampa's favored by 8 on the road in their game at Washington. So very interesting weekend to close things out for the regular season. Now we can get into the discussions about Rookie of the Year, MVP, and things like that, Coach of the Year and whatnot. It's also a Black Monday as several coaches get their walking papers. Could there be more? I don't know. But the Chargers letting go of their coach, Jaguars letting go of their coach, the Jets got rid of Gase. So far, those are the coaching vacancies. There are a few others that still need to be filled because there's interim kind of positions in Houston and in Atlanta. So it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason. Already some college names are being thrown around, or some previous college names like Urban Meyer's name's getting brought up again. So the next couple of days, the next week or so could be very interesting in the NFL as they try to fill these positions and get in the driver's seat early on trying to find the best new talent, the best new people to coach their programs. And the other news, too, is John Elway kind of elevating himself, getting elevated within the Broncos program, and looking for a new general manager, which, frankly, that's probably the right decision. I mean, he's a well-recognized name, well-respected for what he did as a player. He kind of worked some magic early in an administrative role with Denver, but they really have struggled for several years now. And so it's time to make a change there and put some of those decisions in somebody else's hands. So interesting to see how that plays out and who they find to fill that role. So a lot of changes as soon as the regular season comes to a close in the NFL and the postseason is now set. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs that get the first round bye, and the Green Bay Packers get first round bye for the NFC. So the NFL is now done for the regular season. You've got the playoffs, which get underway. Wild card weekend this weekend. And you know what? I have to give the NFL a lot of credit. There are a lot of people saying that in late November, early December, saying, the NFL needs to look at changing its playoff format because it may need the time to make up games and don't have the first round bye and seed things differently because we're not sure of games played, if we need an extra week to make things up. But the NFL through the season, yes, there were a few controversies with how it handled some scheduling and how some teams seemed to be favored over others and how games got rescheduled and whatnot. But in the end, all the games still happened. We're able to get in and take place. They're able to figure some things out and work through coronavirus issues. A lot of teams did it better than some. Some teams did not do a very good job of minding their P's and Q's throughout the entire season. But by and large, I think you have to give the NFL credit for how they're able to run things and get through a regular season, games being played at home venues. Some allowed fans, some didn't, most didn't, but they were still able to pull these games off and have, for some of these venues, have fans in attendance, sell tickets, sell sponsorships, sell concessions. Certainly not to the level that they would normally like to do, but they were still able to pull it off and still get great ratings on TV, have standout performances by individual players and teams, create intriguing storylines from the start to the finish, and we're not done yet. So the playoffs are going to go as with the current schedule that they've always done, with the wild card games taking place this weekend, and your number one team's getting a first round bye. So I liked it, the way they were able to pull it off. So they deserve a lot of credit, and it's got a lot of other leagues looking at how it's done and how they could do it. The NBA so far able to mostly do things okay through their regular season. They have issued some updated, protocols, if you want to call them, for mask wearing and things like that before they get into this new year. Shams Charania reporting that there have been a few updates released by the NBA about mask wearing. If you're on the sidelines, you have to wear a mask. All active players who are dressed to play must wear a mask until they enter the game. Now, there's been some times you see the bench. Some guys are wearing masks. Some guys aren't. They have the separators there, the designated seats. They're kind of two different rows. There's a lot of separation already there. But the NBA is saying, look, we're going to be a little bit better, a little bit more strict on this just to be sure, just to be safe. But if you're on the sidelines, you're wearing a mask. All players, coaches, and staffers must wear masks when you're outside of the team setting and indoors. But as soon as you exit the court, if you're on the court and then you exit, you get subbed in and out. As soon as you go onto the sidelines, you're strongly recommended to wear a mask in that bench area. The requirement resets at halftime. And so inactive players still required to wear a mask for the entire game. So NBA trying to come down, maybe a little bit more of a tweak here, stronger recommendations here that the mask wearing on the sidelines if you're not on the court. They want to make sure they can continue this season without disruption. Just a few weeks into it, they've only released the first half of the schedule through the end of February, early part of March. That's when the All-Star break will take place. and they're hoping to be able to get the second half of the season released, if I'm not mistaken, later this month. From what I remember hearing when the NBA announced just their first half, they were hoping to get the second half of the season released by the end of January, and just to get things planned out and to continue to get things rolling with the NBA. And coming up, we'll update you. We'll talk a little bit more about the Jazz. We'll update the current standings, where the Jazz are at with their games this week. Unfortunately, we've got some high school basketball. They're going to preempt some of these games, but we'll continue to update you as we get those games going. The game tomorrow for the Jazz at Brooklyn is going to look a little bit differently. Two of their top players will not be there. Looks like Kevin Durant is going to be out, and for a couple of games, and then Spencer Dinwiddie out for an extended period of time because he tore his ACL. So that's a pretty big blow to the Nets, who started off really hot, and then they've kind of cooled off a little bit. Washington beat them just the other night. So anyway, we'll get into that a little bit more here on the Full Court Press. Some news coming up about Utah State football coaches. Some names, some very recognizable names named to to Blake Anderson's football staff, and the current the bowl situation in college football. We now know who's going to be playing for the national championship, and the lead up to it maybe wasn't as exciting and as entertaining as we had hoped with the semifinal games. But before we get into that, the RPI rankings have been released for the first time for this season for high school basketball, and for both the boys and the girls throughout the state of Utah. Utah High School Activities Association has released the RPI for all classifications, and for the boys basketball in Region 11, it's kind of their teams are scattered throughout the top 21 or the 21 teams that are involved. For girls basketball, it's interesting. There's a big grouping all together. They're very tight together with their rankings. So very different for the boys and the girls in the first round of RPI rankings. You can see the rankings written about it on Cache Valley Daily. You can see the rankings as they are and what the schedules are for this week. Very busy week for high school basketball. But Skyview tops the boys with the number 5 ranking overall coming into the first rankings of the season. And they trail some 3 teams from Region 9. So really good basketball being played in southern Utah. Crimson Cliffs is number 1, Desert Hills number 2, Juan Diego number 3 coming out of Region 10, and then Snow Canyon at number 4. By the way, Dixie is at 6 and Cedar at 8. So a lot of teams from Region 9, some really good basketball happening in southern Utah early on in the season. But Skyview, they're 6-1 on the season so far. They've had a good schedule. And they've beaten some pretty good teams like Preston, who's a reigning perennial power in the 4A ranks in Idaho. They've had a really good season of trying to figure out who they are without Mason Falslove. A lot of size on that team, but who's going to be initiating a lot of the offense? Who's going to keep things going for them? Isaac Larson, a big defensive presence for them as well, as he's joined their squad. So the Skyview off to a pretty good start for their season so far. Logan off to a really good start at 6-1 on the season. Actually, they're 6-2. They went and lost to Preston on Saturday. So interestingly enough, the RPI from the state doesn't appear to factor that loss into their rankings because the UHSAA has Logan at 6-1. So it doesn't look like they've taken into account their loss in Preston. But nonetheless, Logan at number 7 in the rankings. They've had some nice wins for their season so far. Green Canyon, the other team from Region 11, in the top 10. They come in at number 10. And that's important to stay in that top 10 because of the way that these the first start of the playoffs begin for the UHSAA when these playoffs happen later in February. So these teams want to try to stay in the top 10 if they can. But right now, 3 teams from Region 11 in the top 10. Green Canyon coming in at number 10 with a 6-4 record. Started out pretty well, kind of hit a roadblock in the middle of the season. and of their young season, I should say, and then picked up a couple of nice wins in their tournament up in Idaho Falls. And some of those were really close finishes. So interesting to see if this Green Canyon team has turned a little bit of a corner here, learning how to win close games. A couple of those victories of just 1 point. So very close finishes for the Wolves in their tournament up in Idaho Falls last week during the break. And then at number 12 is Bear River in the rankings. They're 6-4. They started off 3-0 in their classic. They started off the year, and then they've kind of alternated wins and losses since then. So they're 6-4. Ridgeline comes in at 4-6. Now that's a team that was without one of their key players, Caden Cox, earlier in the year. He was the quarterback for the Riverhawks who broke his leg during their playoff matchup in football against Skyview, but has been out for several weeks, almost 2 solid months. But was able to rejoin the team for their tournament this last week down in Juan Diego, and helped his team be a little bit more competitive in those games and then get a win at the last game that they played down there. So see if that means that Ridgeline is turning a corner, perhaps, as they get ready for region play. And then at number 19 in the rankings is Mountain Crest. Mustangs struggling in their season so far, a very young season for them. At 1-5, they've had several of their games get canceled. Some of them kind of last minute because of coronavirus, and most of it because of their opponents. It's not their fault. Some of the games that they would have had on the schedule that would have helped them, and I think were very winnable games, got canceled because of coronavirus in the locker room of their opponents. So, unfortunately, Mountain Crest is struggling at 1-5 through the first 6 weeks or so of the basketball season for high school basketball. In Box Elder County, in Brigham City, in the 5A ranks, Box Elder comes in at number 28, struggling at just 0-8. They haven't been able to win a game just yet. And in 1A, Rich is at number 8, as they're 3-3 on the young season. And like I said, the girls kind of a different story. They're all bunched together in the first round of the RPI rankings from the UHSAA. Skyview, Ridgeline, Green Canyon, and Mountain Crest, all back-to-back. Skyview at number 3, Ridgeline 4, Green Canyon 5, and Mountain Crest coming in at number 6. Logan at number 9, and Bear River at number 11. So all the Region 11 teams playing very well and scoring well with the type of teams that they've played in their non-region and how well they've performed in those games. So all but one of the teams in the top 10 with Bear River just on the outside looking in. Box Elder coming at number 8 in 5A in girls basketball. They're at 5-3 so far. And in the 1A classification, Rich is at 2-4. But not to be left out, not to be forgotten, the teams in Idaho that we're keeping an eye on, Preston and West Side, their seasons, their young seasons so far. Preston is doing well. They've got a couple of losses, however, here recently. They started off really strong at 5-0, winning all of their games, but since then they have lost to the Skyview Bobcats, they've lost to Valley View, and they lost to Middleton. So Preston has kind of hit a little bit of a wall here these last few weeks. For West Side in the 2A classification, they're 4-1, so they're doing well. For the girls, Preston girls basketball team doing really well. One of the best teams in 4A, 11-3 record. 2 of those losses, only 1 point apiece. So looking very good for their young season as they get ready for their region action. And in 2A, West Side is only 2-8 as they've gotten their young season underway and kind of struggling in their season so far. So RPI rankings, what the schedules look like this week for high school basketball. You can read about it on CashValleyDaily.com. You can find the links to listen live wherever you may be. There are radio station partners that are going to be broadcasting these games and see what that full schedule looks like. A full week this week of non-region play. Some of these teams will have one more game early part of next week that's out of region. And then at the tail end of the week, next week, is when region play really gets going for the Utah schools. Thursday for the girls, Friday for the boys, and kind of similar for the Idaho schools as well. So that's the update of what's going on. Because of the Skyview game tomorrow, we will not have the Utah Jazz game. Skyview is going to be hosting Bonneville tomorrow night. That game will be at 7. So I know the Jazz game starts earlier than that, but we don't want to have the Jazz game going and being in the fourth quarter and then preempt it, and then you not know how the game's going to end. So we'll provide updates throughout the night here on the Full Court Press, and then Hurricane John Newbold will provide the final updates as the Skyview Bobcats finish out get their game going as Utah Jazz game concludes in Brooklyn. Skyview taking on Bonneville tomorrow. We'll have that full play-by-play starting at about 6:45 with the pregame and the 7 o'clock tip. All right, coming up next here on the Full Court Press, some coaching changes, or coaching announcements, I should say, for Utah State football. Some very familiar names included on that list. And speaking of football, the controversy about Frank Maile and comments allegedly made by President Noel Cockett may be kind of approaching a resolution this week. At least there will be some conversations, very high-level conversations, taking place this week. We'll update you on that progress coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Interviews, analysis, and a little bit of fun mixed in. The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Yes, in fact, Doug Gottlieb, in his promo there, Notre Dame did participate in the Rose Bowl, though maybe they would have hoped that they wouldn't. But you know what? I give them some credit. Defensively, they held Alabama way below their averages. They made it tough on Alabama to do what Alabama normally likes to do. But Alabama took care of business 31-14 over the Irish. They advanced to the championship, and it'll be Ohio State waiting for them. Ohio State took it to Clemson, and a big first half for the Buckeyes. And their defense was outstanding. Offense was even better, even with an injured quarterback. So, this could be an interesting championship game. Just, the same players keep rotating through, I guess. That's maybe good on one hand because they're recognizable programs that have large national followings. It's decent for ratings, but kind of boring in my mind. Personally, I'd like to see a little variety, but until somebody can knock off Alabama consistently, they're always going to be there and be in the hunt. Same thing with Ohio State, and certainly the last several years, Clemson has been in that mix. Credit to Notre Dame. A lot of people were trying to bag on Notre Dame, but look, they played well throughout the regular season. They had a great defense, and they were able to get into the college football playoff. They deserve to be there. Georgia beat Cincinnati, unfortunately, in the Peach Bowl. Kind of came down to the wire. That Cincinnati defense was good until the fourth quarter, and Georgia was able to get that long field goal at the end to put them up and to seal their victory over Cincinnati, unfortunately. Northwestern took it to Auburn. Auburn didn't really belong in the Citrus Bowl, but there they were. They were there anyway. Texas A&M with the big win in the Orange Bowl over North Carolina. Iowa State took it to Oregon, 34-17. That's another one of those cases where in the Fiesta Bowl, there were several highly ranked teams that did not get the same opportunity to go to a big bowl game. But because we have to honor and give the Pac-12 a seat at the table, and we have these old notions of conference affiliations and got to keep the money within the power programs, let's throw in a lower-ranked Oregon team and instead send these higher-ranked group of 5 teams to mediocre bowl games that nobody really pays attention to. Nonetheless, Iowa State got the job done. Another big bowl game, Georgia beating up on. We already talked about that one. There was the Florida over Oklahoma. I know we talked about this a little bit last week, but that's probably one that stood out to me perhaps the most in some of these bowl games that took place this last week. But we've got the championship set now. It's going to be next Monday, Ohio State and Alabama. That'll tip off at 6 o'clock on ESPN. The early line from Vegas, for those that follow for entertainment purposes only, Alabama currently favored by 7.5, and they're predicting a lot of points will be scored in this one. Two teams that have very good offenses. It's probably right. I'd probably be inclined to take the over on that one. But that's coming up next Monday at 6 o'clock on ESPN. Had a text come in from 9315. Can you tell us what new players USU has in football and what staff does Anderson have in store so far? So we talked about this last week. There was transfer news that Logan Bonner, quarterback from Arkansas State with 2 years of eligibility, would be leaving Arkansas State and coming to Logan to participate with the Aggies. Don't know how that fits in with the other quarterbacks that are there, but maybe this gives you a little bit of a clue who may have the inside edge, because one of Logan Bonner's top targets at Arkansas State has announced that he is leaving the Red Wolves, and he too will be coming to Logan. That's wide receiver Brandon Bowling. He announced on Twitter earlier today he's going to be transferring. He does have one more year of eligibility, and they will be here in the spring, so they can be here for spring ball. But Kyle Cephalo, the wide receivers coach at Arkansas State, he's getting work done, and he's a guy that has produced some pretty amazing wide receivers. Sun Belt Offensive Players of the Year, several of them have been wide receivers from Arkansas State. So kind of excited to see what he's been able to do. He got Devin Tompkins to come back as well. This Bowling, he had just had 39 receptions, 507 yards receiving, 7 touchdowns. So a good target. Certainly he's going to have some familiarity with the quarterback. I don't know that necessarily means that puts Logan Bonner in the driver's seat to be the starting quarterback coming into the 2021 season. But certainly that coaching staff is going to have some familiarity with him, and they're giving him a familiar target to throw to. But I hope for their sake, for the entire team's sake, that they give Andrew Peasley and the other guys a legitimate shot to try to still be the starting quarterback coming into the next year, just to help save that locker room and give them some credibility after all that's happened over this past year. But as far as the coaches are concerned, back to the original question from 9315, there are some coaching announcements today. Now, we already knew that Chucky Keaton was going to be joining the staff, but Blake Anderson in his introductory press conference didn't exactly know how Chucky Keaton would be positioned. He had some other guys that he was talking to fill out his staff, and he wasn't exactly sure where Chucky would land. But it became official today. Chucky Keaton will coach running backs. And Keaton, standout quarterback for USU. He does have 5 years of experience on the coaching. He has been last 2 seasons. He was a grad assistant at Texas Tech. He spent a year as a grad assistant at USU back in 2018. He spent time as an offensive quality control assistant at Oregon State and was a grad assistant at Oregon State in 2017 as well. So mostly as grad assistant type of positions for Chucky, but he's been doing it for 5 years or so now. So now he has an opportunity to be a position coach. And from the release today from Coach Blake Anderson, says you couldn't ask for a better ambassador of Aggie football than Chucky Keaton. He understands our culture as well as anyone and has invested a great deal into this program as both a player and coach. Chucky will bring great energy and knowledge of the offensive side of the football, and his familiarity with the state of Texas from a recruiting standpoint is an added bonus to the future success of our program. So that's exciting news. It's kind of a little more definitive position for Chucky. But then these two other people were named today officially to different positions within the USU football program, including DJ Tialavea. He's going to be coaching tight ends at Utah State. I loved DJ Tialavea. I loved the nastiness he brought as a tight end. He was a converted defensive end to tight end, and it worked out great. He worked out as a great receiving tight end. He wasn't just a nasty blocker on the line, which he could be, but he developed into a great target, a great receiving tight end for the Aggies. Eventually found his way to the NFL, played for a few years at the NFL level, but now he's coming back to Utah State. He spent the 2020 season as an offensive graduate assistant, helping with tight ends, and now he will be the tight ends coach for USU. 4-year letter winner for the Aggies. He was a 3-year captain for Utah State. So he was part of that great team that had the turnaround with Gary Anderson in the Western Athletic Conference, and had a great career at Utah State. Then went on to the NFL for a few seasons. But good to see DJ Tialavea. Love that connection. We're coming back to Utah State. He gets an opportunity to be a position coach. And then the other guy that's a familiar name for those that have followed Utah State for a while, Al Lapuahu, joining Utah State. He'll be the defensive line coach. He was a standout player for the Aggies, but he spent last year as a strength and conditioning graduate assistant. In 2018 and 19, he was a defensive graduate assistant working with the defensive line. So he's been working with that unit, and he will get the job as the position coach. But he was a part of a team that he was just there not too many years ago, part of that 2018 squad that won 11 games and won that bowl game against North Texas. So he was... He also spent time as a defensive grad assistant up at Oregon State in 2016 and 17 under Gary Anderson. He worked specifically with the defensive line. So he's had some experience at Utah State and in the Pac-12 as kind of similar to Chucky Keaton. They've been in Power 5 programs. They've been a part of some bigger leagues, and they get to bring that experience back to Utah State. So Coach Blake Anderson putting his staff together and getting some interesting players to come to Utah State. The bigger crop of players that for this recruiting class, probably not going to hear more about that until the first part of February. With that, we had the early signing period in December, but the National Letter of Intent signing period is the early part of February. And he said all along, look, it's not how we start, it's how we finish. And it's not the names, the number of names that get announced in early signing period. It's the number of names at the end. But he's been able to pick up a few transfers. He's been able to secure a few early recruits. And his staff is busy out there trying to get the right kind of players together for what they want to do in their style of offense and defense coming up for this upcoming season. So kind of exciting to see what this staff is going to look like. And what the players coming in are going to look like. We still don't know the defensive coordinator officially, but I think we've got some pretty good ideas. That team that was going to come from is now done with their bowl game, so that should be happening soon. And the strength and conditioning coach, which he was very excited about, that has not been made official yet either. So still a few positions left unfilled formally for the Utah State Aggies and Blake Anderson. One other question from 9315. What do we think of the men's basketball games that were played at Air Force? Dominating performances in both games by the Aggies. Starters played a little bit more in the second game than they did the first game. So a little surprised at that the bench didn't get more play, though. I think the way that the bench played in garbage time in the first game probably is the reason why they didn't get much time in the second against the Air Force Academy. But still really impressed with Nemi, the way he has locked down the paint, blocking shots, grabbing rebounds, affecting shots. I thought Bean has played really well. Stephen Ashworth off the bench has played well. Trevin Dorius, whenever Nemi takes a break, has looked really solid. Brock Miller has come alive these last 2 weeks. And certainly that's something that the Aggies really, really need. They're so much better team when he hits from the outside and has that threat. Really impressed to see how they've started the season so far. And if you missed it earlier, the NCAA net rankings were released for the first time this season, and Utah State comes in at number 85. They've played several quad 1 and quad 2 games, but they haven't been able to get any victories in those games. They're 1-0 in quad 3. They're 5-0 in quad 4, but they're 0-3 in quadrants 1 and 2 against the type of competition that they play. Boise State, kind of surprising, coming in at number 13 to start the kind of early in the season as these net rankings are released. Boise State is a number 13 team. They are 1-1 in quad 1 games. That probably has a big part to do with it. Colorado State coming in at number 40 in these rankings, net rankings. San Diego State at 41. Colorado State's come from behind victory at San Diego State has a lot to do with where they are ranked, because the rest of their resume really isn't that strong. But Colorado State was down 26 points early in the first half at San Diego. They do play again tonight. It's the second game of their series is taking place tonight. That game tips off at 7 o'clock, and you can see that game actually on FS1 tonight. San Diego State is favored by 8. Will the Rams be able to pull off their magic again, or will San Diego State clamp down and secure their position? But that means that was San Diego State's first conference game. Colorado State is 3-0 in conference play. San Diego State 0-1. A couple other games in the Mountain West going on tonight. Wyoming is at Fresno State. That's at 7 o'clock tonight. And 7:30, Benedictine is, I guess it's a lower division college team. They're playing San Jose State tonight. I guess that's probably a makeup game from previous, but those are the games going on tonight throughout the Mountain West. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press, let's get into the NBA. Utah Jazz with a big win last night on the road at San Antonio. Jazz looking that good, or San Antonio just looking that bad? And what are the other current standings in the NBA? Their opponent tomorrow is looking very different. We'll update you on the health of who will and who won't be on the other side for the Utah Jazz. That's coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
It's the Full Court Press, weekday afternoons from 4 to 6 on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
By the way, happy birthday, Utah. State of Utah turns 125 years today as an official state of the Union. In the Union, I guess I should say. There's going to be some fireworks tonight, I guess, down at Willow Park. There's going to be some special broadcasts starting at 6:30 on just about any main channel out of Salt Lake. So fireworks shows are going to be taking place in all 29 counties, starting at 7:30. So wherever your county seat is in the state of Utah, that's where fireworks are going on. So in Logan, it's going to be in Willow Park. They're also going to be taking place in Brigham City. So when you see the fireworks going off, don't think it's some weirdo that didn't realize today is not the 1st or 31st. News today out of Utah State University. We know that there's been an investigation called for by the USU Board of Trustees, by the Utah State Board of Higher Education, which used to be known as the Board of Regents. Frank Miley has also called for an investigation, but these two other entities are doing independent investigations. Those investigations are actually working together. They're external investigations. It's not an internal investigation going on regarding alleged comments made by Noelle Cockett when USU football players wanted to meet with her specifically because they felt like the athletic department was not hearing their concerns and they'd lost some respect for what was going on in the athletic department over some things that had taken place over the last 6 months. So they wanted to speak specifically with Noelle Cockett to express their concerns that Frank Miley didn't seem to be getting a fair shot at being the full-time head coach, not just the interim head football coach. And allegedly during that conversation, Noelle Cockett asked some questions that the players felt illustrated some religious and cultural bias toward Frank Miley. The players got together when it appeared apparent that according to a lot of social media traffic on Thursday that USU was officially going with Blake Anderson and Frank Miley was definitively out of the race. Then they got together Friday morning with the whole team, explained the situation, and allegedly unanimously voted to boycott their season finale at Colorado State. That launched a lot of speculation, what was going on, a lot of controversy. And so that weekend, the USU Board of Trustees said, hey, look, we have to look into this. We're going to launch our own independent investigation. And then a few days later, for the early part of the following week, the Utah Board of Higher Education said, we too are going to launch an investigation. Now, we've since found out and learned, according to a report on CashValleyDaily.com, that these two independent investigations are actually working together rather than doing their own thing separately. They're working together in concert to try to get to the bottom of what happened and to come up with a recommendation or a solution for what should take place next. What kind of discipline, if any, should take place. But according to a university spokesperson, the USU Board of Trustees has a special meeting planned for tomorrow morning. Now, that meeting is tentative, according to the spokesperson, and contingent on the board receiving the review today. The Utah Board of Higher Education will receive the review at the same time, and they also could be scheduling a meeting to discuss it. So there's a chance we might get some resolution to this and these alleged comments later this week. Maybe even as early as tomorrow, but they're trying to talk to a lot of players to get their feel for what happened. Talk to Noelle Cockett and to John Hartwell. The meeting was not recorded. I think that's the big issue here. So they have to talk to a lot of people to see what was and corroborate what was said and what it means. USU has retained Stoll Reeves to conduct their external review. The Board of Education has retained Ray, Quinney, and Nebeker to conduct their external investigation. So you can read more about it on CashValleyDaily.com. Coming up next, some news about the Utah Jazz and who they will and won't be facing tomorrow in Brooklyn. Stick around.
Doesn't matter who you root for. The Full Court Press has all the high school sports covered. The Full Court Press. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at 1069thefan.com.
He has tested negative here in the last 3 days. He had close contact to somebody who tested positive, and it puts him right back into that protocol. You know, he continues to have the antibodies in his system, I'm told.
That is Adrian Wojnarowski reporting on Kevin Durant, who will be into the NBA protocol, and he'll have to miss a couple of games because he came in close contact with somebody who tested positive. He will miss a couple of games, which includes a game tomorrow against the Utah Jazz. Jazz are in Brooklyn tomorrow. We unfortunately will not have that game because Skyview Bobcats play, and that takes precedence over the Utah Jazz. But the Brooklyn Nets are also without Spencer Dinwiddie, who tore his ACL, and he will be out for pretty much the remainder of the season. So Brooklyn started off hot, but they've lost a couple of games here late. They're 3-4. Meanwhile, the Jazz kind of been up and down this season, but they're undefeated on the road, and they took care of business last night against San Antonio, dropping bombs from outside left and right. Bojan Bogdanovic was 6 for 7 from beyond the arc. Royce O'Neal, his outside shot finally started to fall as well. He was 3 for 4. And the Utah Jazz cruised to a victory, 130-109. And good win for the Jazz. Good to get things flowing. George Niang finally got a bucket. He's been scoreless through the start of the season. It took a little layup for him to finally get on the scoreboard in 2020-2021 season. Hopefully he's better than that. Coming off the bench. Jordan Clarkson continues to play really well for the Jazz. Derek Favors, solid off the bench. So a really good game for the Jazz. Mike Conley continues to just be the Mike Conley we'd hoped that he would be for Utah. And 15 points, 4 assists, a steal, just some solid basketball while he's on the court running the ship, and just calm and collected, helping this Utah Jazz team come together. He and Rudy Gobert have been the most consistent. Rudy, not his best scoring night, but 6 blocks, 16 boards. Very solid performance again by Rudy Gobert. So they embark on this very long road trip, and some of these games we will have here on the Fan, but some of them will get preempted because of Skyview High School basketball. So just keep that in mind. Skyview does take precedence over the Jazz, but otherwise we'll have those games here on the Fan, the new home of the Utah Jazz. That's going to do it for us tonight here on a Monday. Have a great night, everybody. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.